You want to do a film project like this, which is a big undertaking. What's pushing that, Beth?
I think something like this appeals to my ego. To be perfectly honest, I love the idea that you were willing to do it, but I thought, why me? And I thought, well, why not?
When we were little, we had our secrets, and we were us against them, against our parents, of course. And so it was our own. We had our own defenses, and not that our parents were ogres, but they had their ways of being unpleasant with us. No shouting or anything like that. No abuse. But it was good to have our own little secret society, and we did. And it was us against them in a lot of ways. When we moved around a lot in the military family milieu, we would move to new places a lot, and so it was good to have our own team, which was us. And so when we moved in a new neighborhood, we weren't alone. And I was enough younger when you're little that I was a pain in the neck, but she put up with me most of the time, which is nice. So I just want to reiterate that I really love you a lot. More than I can say, and probably more than I've ever told you. Have a good journey.
When you've been ill a lot and kind of at the mercy of other people to live, you realize what a precious thread it is, and that all too easily, it can all be gone. It just, poof, like that. So every morning I wake up and I say, thank you. Thank you. And that's the way I feel. I love having all the kids around. That kind of, I don't know, what would I say? It makes me feel like I'm in a cocoon of love. So, and then there's you.
Bets, you just have one of the biggest hearts I know, and which is why I think you're able to go through what you're experiencing now with so much grace and with so much gratitude. I don't see an ounce of bitterness in you.
As long as I can remember, I've had a deep wish to help people in some way. And I didn't know how to do that. I mean, I did little volunteer things, which were great. But then I met my mentor, Marjorie Leeming, at the Santa Paula Church. And she said, you really want to be a minister, Beth? And I'm like, no, I don't want to be a minister. but she kept kind of hinting around that that would be a good idea. She was also doing therapy, existential therapy with me. And by the time I finished the therapy, or pretty much finished it, I was clear that I did want to be a minister, and I got the call. You get the call, it's like no matter what obstacles are put in front of you, you have to keep going. And it was weird. One time I was reading a book I really didn't want to read. It was who knows who, some stuffy Christian. Anyway, I was reading it and I started to fall asleep, and I saw these older women from an older time, like the early 1900s, and they were beckoning me forward. And I knew those were my sisters that were helping me along. I woke up and I finished doing the reading.
Beth was my first Unitarian Universalist minister. She encouraged me to be involved, and when I began to do things as a lay leader, she taught me many things about how to do that. Through talking with me, through sharing stories with me, through working together on committees and teams, just watching her do the work of ministry firsthand, I learned a tremendous amount. And there were times in conversations when she would say, I think you could be a minister. I see that in you. And it took me many years to be able to have that not be too scary to even think about. And she was very patient and willing to walk with me as I did the discernment around my call to ministry.
And people would always ask me, what does spiritual mean? And I said, spiritual means the same thing as beautiful. And it shut them up.
So what does spiritual mean?
Spiritual to me means the openness to the goodness and beauty of the world, and being actually transformed by what it can give us if we are open to it. My spirituality has given to me the feeling of being not in charge. It's a pretty humble feeling, but I don't feel like I'm in charge with that. Something else is. And it's not God as we know it. It's a source of power if you're open to it. That's all I know. I think of myself as prideful. I'm always trying to be humble, because being humble allows you to, it just allows you to learn that you would never learn if you thought you knew everything. So that's always on my list of things that I say, today could I remember how to be humble? Before we even moved up here to Santa Barbara, you and I talked about wanting to do something meaningful together, that we loved each other so much that we would like to do something meaningful. Mm-hmm. You remember that?
I do.
And I think Live Oak is the result.
How was he supported?
Oh, he managed to raise a whole bunch of money for us to build our first building. And he kept being a cheerleader for the doubters and naysayers. And he could make drawings that made people excited about the whole thing. He was just amazing. Someone said he could sell ice boxes to Eskimos. And some of those guys in the church were, well, they had to be sold. But we did, and we built a building and bought the land, the farm, bought the farm. And much of it was due to you.
Well, none of it would have been possible had it not been for the spiritual foundation that was set by Betts. Nobody would have gone along with it. I had the easy job. All I had to do is find the farm, buy it, raise the money.
That's all.
But without, and I mean it, without what you did, that would have been meaningless work.
For
it
you.
Would have gone nowhere.
So is this your first disagreement that we're having here?
Yeah, it could be.
Answer that. Is this the first disagreement? Who was more instrumental?
Is this the first disagreement?
Actually, it's not. In the sense that it was a partnership. It was a really effective partnership.
It was.
Did you learn that Peter was the one for you after you met him?
When I first learned that Peter was the one for me was the first time I saw him. And I thought, that is a good-looking Unitarian Universalist. And he seems like he's pretty smart, although it was a meeting where all he did was eat cookies. And I thought, well, that's kind of funny that it's 8 o'clock at night and he eats all these cookies. But I kept going to things in Santa Barbara, hoping I'd meet him again. And I didn't until the General Assembly in June of 1976. And I saw him again. He was wearing green. What are those pants called? Those rayon, horrible polyester pants with a horrible green patterned shirt. And I thought, oh, but he's underneath that horrible outfit is a wonderful man. And there were a whole bunch of women kind of floating around him. And I kept thinking, how am I going to get through this gauntlet of women who like him? I don't really know how I did, but I was pretty pushy. Wasn't I? I'm going to hold you to... Wasn't I?
Yeah, see, here's the other point of disagreement. I thought I was chasing her. Later on, I figured out she was chasing me.
Anyway, it was a lusty beginning. Yeah, we were a lusty partnership almost from the beginning. I mean, somehow I knew he was the man for me. I don't know how soon that happened for you, but I knew right away. I was going to get that guy. I was just pure lust. I'm like, yeah, that's the one. Really? I don't know when it happened for you.
Well, let's see. The morning after, I woke up and she was still in bed with me. And I knew.
Do most of them leave?
I didn't mean it that way. I just knew. Once we got together, I knew I was in serious trouble.
You were, because we were both married to someone else.
Oh, you were both still married to someone
Yes.
else? Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yes. Very bad. But I'd been I'd been out of that marriage for probably 10 years. I was married by the Reverend Marjorie Leeming, who was the minister in the Santa Paula Church, and someone I really wanted to have officiate.
Did she do a good job?
We had to be married twice.
Why?
Because of law and Reagan. He just changed everything so that if you were married, you'd have to pay income tax on your partner all year, your wife. So guess who didn't want to really get married until the next year? And then the next morning we had to come back from our honeymoon. She was an official. She had to have it right. So we had to come back. My sister had to come back, and Peter had to corral a guy to be his best man. And that was our legal wedding. I think Peter wrote our vows one night in the emergency room, waiting room, while Elizabeth got her spider bite taken care of. It was that time, you know, when we had teenagers around. We had our vows, and they were our favorite part, where he said, I promise to be patient with you if you will be patient for me. But that's not quite right.
We agreed at the outset to be forgiving and to be patient with each other's shortcomings, because I think each of us recognized, perhaps with the benefit of the fact that this was a second marriage, that we were imperfect beings, and that in order for our marriage to survive, we'd have to acknowledge that at the outset.
Have you been patient with each other?
I have. I have been faithful. And I think we've been faithful to those vows, with a few minor exceptions when I've been really crabby. And you've been crabby sometimes too, Stevie. Anyway, generally, yes. It put a note of forgiveness right there in the basic vows. I think the one thing that I wasn't really prepared for in our marriage and had to get used to was Peter's travels to China. I did them, you know, I stayed here for all but 2. The best part was when he came home. Yeah, it was just really wonderful. Because it was like, you know, brand new. Lusters in the air.
Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. I have always found Betts to be just one of the warmest people, and authentic, really easy to be around. She has such a lovely way of putting others around her at ease, which makes it easy for folks to trust, not only her, but each other and the whole community. It's as if she sets that safe space and sets that tone and makes it possible for people to step into that place of kindness and trust. that's something I aspire to and I try to replicate, and really is a groundwork for ministry that I learned from her.
I much preferred performing memorial services than weddings. I hated doing weddings. But that's another story. There was one memorial service I performed of a woman who was extremely difficult, but nobody would admit it in the family until during the time when people can talk. One nephew said, actually, was a extreme bitch. It was a great moment. Everybody said, yes, yes. It was like a celebration. Some kind of truth broke out. And I didn't have anything really to do with it.
That has touched a lot of lives. I see her as a great source of light and love. And I know that that will continue on, even when she's no longer here in her body, that spirit will be with all of us and in the world. And I just feel very grateful and graced to have known her.
Can I say what I'm grateful for?
Yeah.
I'm grateful for every time someone feeds me, because I couldn't feed myself. It gets down to that. I'm grateful for my kids, my grandkids, my friends. I have wonderful friends and colleagues. The opportunity to do what I did. I was very, very fortunate to get to minister like I did with a wonderful congregation. I am so grateful for Peter. He is the love of my life. And it's so hard for me to see him keeping on. He was supportive of me all the way along. There's a wonderful quote I'd love to read, if I could.
Yes, of course.
There are always those perfect times with the people we love, those moments of joy and equality that sustain us later on. Those moments are the foundation upon which we build the house that will shelter us into our final years, so that when love calls out, "How far would you go for me?" you can look it in the eye and say truthfully, "Further than you would ever have thought possible."